Well, hi. Joining us today are Jennifer Wetzel, who is the Director of Automation, and Emily LaFeir, who is the Senior Director, Innovation Operations at the Steel Institute for Health Innovation at Geisinger. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Jennifer, we'd like to start off with you understanding why automate now. So what led Geisinger down the path to automation?
So I think it was really a lot of our top innovation leaders that decided that automation was something that was missing from our offerings. So I think this was a really key time a year ago when they together and decided that automation is a service that we will be able to provide to the organization in terms of providing back efficiency gains, value to the organization in a time where the landscape for healthcare is where it's at from a position of value and where you have to look in different ways to provide different things. I think it was very key with our leaders, Karen Murphy and Emily LaFeir, who you're going to hear from. It was something that we were missing, and it has really benefited enterprise to give something that was not there.
Jennifer, you talked a little bit about the goals. Emily, to you, when you guys set out to get started, what were the goals that you were looking towards? What were you hoping to accomplish with automation?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned in the beginning, I work in the Steel Institute for Health Innovation, and innovation is really what drove us to automation and understanding where it's at in healthcare. We're in the hype cycle of RPA and just starting to learn what it is and what it means to healthcare. We look at the banking industry and we look at the oil industries, many areas where RPA is widely adopted. Healthcare is not adopted this really fully. And I think that Karen and I knew that automation was something we wanted to bring in, but it was going to be a learning curve for us because there was no playbook that we could run by. And so we really had the goal of setting up a measurable program and developing quantifiable outcomes and what can come from automation. And so, Jen talked about the operational efficiencies, obviously a key driver for what we wanted to do, but really figure out what is the playbook for healthcare and how can automation truly make a difference. So looking at the various departments, the regulations that drive healthcare, and what role does automation play in it? Outside of the native automation that's already in certain systems, and how can we bring that bridge between systems that are within healthcare?
So we've heard from other customers and our partners that the coronavirus pandemic has been a catalyst for accelerating automation programs within an organization. Have you found that at Geisinger, and how has it accelerated or changed your program at all? Jennifer, you want to take that?
Yeah, so I think one thing is that we have a lot of great minds and a lot of great teams, and the one thing that has really I'll say helped automation is that there wasn't a lot of time to waste. And we had all of these teams come together, and it all came to automation playing a key role in delivering the services to help with the COVID. So one really good example was, right now we're working on our patient contactless visit automation. So, we want to keep our patients safe and our employees safe. So we're working on an automation that will be able to text patients, when they're in the parking lot, come to your appointment, your time is ready, or it's delayed, or the physician can't see you yet. So, we're working with UiPath right now on how we can best do that in an automated fashion. Now, I've been in IT for a long time and at Geisinger for a while. Looking back, trying to put something like that together without the COVID over us, it would have taken a very long time because it's a huge undertaking. You're talking about changing patient workflows and everything else. So it has really accelerated it. and everyone has really come together because we want to improve the health of our patients and our employees. And so it has really, it's removed barriers that, were they really barriers? We're not really sure, but automation has come in and really helped from that aspect, and these teams are working together. And we see where, you know, automation can fill a gap where before we thought one application was the key for everything. And now automation can come in and say, you know, I can take care of that one little piece where your application couldn't. And that's okay, and that's our role. And it's great because it comes in, does its job, and then let the rest of that application play out for the rest of it. So it's really, we're seeing where the benefit plays where it's supposed to play, and then let the other pieces fall where they need to.
We've heard that, you know, that speed of reaction and, you know, the agility and being able to react to changing conditions is one of the benefits that automation provides. But the COVID crisis has really underscored how important it is for companies to have that agility when faced with a rapid change. You know, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think we absolutely agree with it. Yeah, Jen, you know, highlighted one initiative that we are doing. I think I talked about the bridge a little bit that RPA provides for initiatives. And at Geisinger, we like to look at what is the problem. Technology is an enabler, a driver to a solution, but it is not the solution. And so we look at it, what is the problem and what are the features or skill sets that we need to solve that problem, and then identify where the gaps are within the system. And what I think that Geisinger quickly realized, and individuals that we once maybe saw barriers, and COVID helped break that down, was this misunderstanding of what RPA can provide as a solution or a gap filler. And an example of that is we rapidly deployed a reassignment bot that would allow us to bridge two different systems and information from those systems, so that we didn't have to have a manual person doing a daily upload, and actually multiple times a day uploading data into a system to create a process for reassigning staff. So very effective and very quick too. And in a time when we were on a hiring freeze, as many of the organizations across the economy were, we didn't have the ability to hire staff to meet the needs of COVID. And our bots acted as staff to augment the teams to be able to do what they needed to do rapidly.
So, like, what's at stake if you don't automate now, or if you don't scale your current automations now?
What's at stake is market capture. We're looking at a digital transformation across healthcare. We think at the rapid evolution of banking and the lack of brick and mortar that exists today in your mobile interfaces, and how does that transform the way healthcare is going to be in 5 years? We are on that cusp in one of the greatest learning curves of our time after COVID, I think, to figure out what is that digital transformation for healthcare. And I think automation plays a big piece in that digital transformation. I think I come back to, it is an enabler and a driver. It's not going to ever be, I think, the end-all solution. But if you don't have that piece, you're going to have broken processes and pieces that are manual and less operationally efficient. And your patients and members will notice that. Especially from the front-facing side, and then your employee engagement and satisfaction, they will notice that too. And the long-term effects of RPA are that highly engaged employee and highly engaged patient due to just the simple processes and the reduced manual effort on their part. I get to think as an employee more strategically, and the bot just goes and automatically processes the payment that patient provided and does the calculations to balance my sheet automatically. And then I get to think about the impact, the downstream impact from that data, rather than actually manually inputting the data. That's just a very high level example from an employee engagement side, where if we don't have these efficiencies, they're not going to be able to succeed.
How do you look at automation in regards to providing more resilience to the business?
This actually is good timing. It happened today. We had bot that went live in our film file library. And we had the ops manager in there call and say, I have an employee who was unexpectedly sick, and one who was, two of them were out of the office unexpectedly. They asked us to run the automation outside of the scheduled window to help with the workload. So it's sort of like they kind of, bots don't get sick. They're not, they're going to help take care of that backload. It was kind of funny. I was, when, talking about this question, it's exactly what you said, so it kind of has its own resiliency built into it in a sense. It's finding, those automations that have the backlog of work that needs to be done, or it really does happen. I will go to what was really interesting is, we were working on a process design document and going through, and we went to the testing phase, and one department found out the results of doing the automation, and they were like, and this was the first one that we did with them, and they were like, wow, the automation did all of that. Like, they couldn't believe that they took care of it, everything that the bot could do. So we had some exceptions that they wanted written into it. And then when they saw that list of exceptions, they were like, well, could we go back and see if we could really take care of those and have the bot do more? So it was like a huge light bulb that went off with the business, because they were like, the automation can really do this. And it was the first one that we did with it. So it was a great learning opportunity and a lesson. Like, even though I was like, oh, we want to get this to production, but it was still huge that the business actually saw like what they can get out of it. And it goes to, this question of like, if I can get the bot to do this, it will never, it won't have to be done by a person, or if those people go away or get sick or what have you, the bot's going to run, and the bot's going to be able to take care of that. And in addition, what can we add to it and continually do that process improvement? So, yeah.
It's a new way of thinking about disaster recovery. When you typically think about disaster recovery, you think about systems shutting down and technology going away, and how can we do this manually? But on the flip side, how can we do this without humans?
Is automation a C-level priority in your organization? And, is it something that the CEO and the board are, supporting?
Absolutely. Karen Murphy is our EVP and Chief Innovation Officer, and she sits on that executive leadership team. When we started this journey, one of the first things we did was she asked me to take it to the whole team, her colleagues, to get their buy-in. And we knew that was important. And over the past year, as we've learned and iterated on our development of the Intelligent Automation Hub at Geisinger, we've met very closely with our Chief Financial Officer, Kevin Roberts, and our Chief Operating Officer, Matt Walsh, to figure out what information they needed and to show them the results that automation was achieving and how we could enhance our processes. So they've been supportive throughout the whole journey, and actually have been very hands-on in iterating to how we present the information from a top-down approach.
Speaking of that approach, let's talk a little bit about how do you decide what to automate? What's the process there?
So I'll say, Jen, I'll let you definitely talk about the formal process, but we've really, we have a pipeline now, and honestly, at this point, we have so many processes to go through that, I think our intake process is what it makes us successful, and Jen can talk about that from a prioritization standpoint. But we don't actually need to go out and seek them. They come to us now, which is really great, because I think we've ingrained that culture and that mindset for what automation can do for Geisinger and for your process specifically.
Yeah. So when you talk about like prioritizing the automations and what to do next and what have you, it really comes down to the data. So it's the data and the business case. So, and that's, I think, why I love this space so much, is because, you have all this numbers and data and the ROI. And it kind of does remove some of the, I don't want to say feeling out of it, but you can go back to the business. You can say, let's just do a discovery on three automations, 3 processes. I can come back to the business and say, here are your 3 business cases. Here's the ROI. Here's where they're at from a number perspective. Now, I will say, yeah, the business case and the numbers are important, but especially in our healthcare environment, patient care is important, employee satisfaction is important. So those are things that definitely sometimes will override, a high ROI. But we can put it back on the business and say, what do you want us to automate? Where do we go? And, at the end of the day, like Emily was talking about, we put together a really great executive summary, and we lay out, like, if there's cost avoidance, if there's, all of those great things that automation can do for you. And then that's up to the business to make sure those things get done. Automation will take care of them, but the business has to take it back to the business and actually make those actionable. But we will show you where the value is at. So I think that real for prioritizing them. And then we also want to make sure we're aligning with any, big strategic projects that are going on. So if there's, we have a big digital strategy project going on, or, a lot of projects, and we want to make sure we align with them. So educating and getting out in front of those leaders and saying, automation wants to work side by side with you and help implement where your product might not be able to make those connections into the other systems. So think of us as, a parallel partner for you to help with that implementation, to come in and get you to the next level without having to buy an additional product or spend a lot of consulting money, because we're already here and we're embedded in Geisinger to provide a service to you. So we want to be a partner to the different types of projects that are going on within Geisinger. So we've done that through, we had an education open house. We did a bit of a roadshow in the beginning of this. Like, we were at first getting on calendars, and I mean, it was like, I think at least once or twice a week, I was meeting with everybody. We did we did bots. We had an educational open house, and we had opportunity. It was great. Our UiPath people came in, and we had people making bots, and we were like, education, I cannot say that is the most important thing you can do. And you start with, what is a bot and what is RPA? Yeah. And because you can't assume that the people that you're talking to in the business lines actually know, you get this like 5 to 10 seconds of totally awkwardness in the beginning of the meeting, because people think that they know what automation is, but they'll be like, yeah, that's artificial intelligence, or that's, and while it's the whole stack of everything. We're here to talk to them about RPA. So, we have a bad reputation of throwing around acronyms in IT and this environment. And people, we're talking to nurses and we're talking to physicians, and they don't know what it is. So you have to break it down to, like, RPA, robotic process automation, what a bot is. It's something that software runs on a server. Like, you really have to break it down from an education is key. Totally.
I find that when I need to explain what RPA is and what robots do, I think just playing a video is the best way to do it. Just show them a robot in action, right? They see that the robot is actually working like a person would. With the application. I think that's where light bulb tends to go off when I explain it.
I was going to say, I remember when we did start showing videos, and it's even hard when you show them the video. You have to preface before the video what the bot's going to do, and that this actually is the bot. And then the other thing is, you oftentimes have to slow the bot down from doing its process. Yes. And then explain, this is the bot going at this speed, but it really runs at, this video would have been 10 seconds if we would have ran the bot at normal speed, even though you're seeing a minute of it doing it. So that's really, it's awesome to see that light bulb go off when you tell them, this is running at half speed. Like, they're like, what? It goes so fast.
Yeah.
It's true. That is so true, especially somebody who's not a technical person. You have to tell them what they're going to see. and then, you know, and then it really has impact. Yeah, that's. You all have you've mentioned the Center of Intelligent Automation. Is that your Center of Excellence for RPA?
Yeah, so we tagged ourselves the IAH, not to use acronyms, but it's the Intelligent Automation Hub. So IAH is what we call it for the short name, and that just encompasses you know, RPA, and we work. You know, we're working to build those skill sets to go beyond just RPA and weave in the UiPath AI fabric and, you know, the chatbot functionality and what extends beyond automation. So we really wanted to make sure we taglined that with the intelligence piece, because we're not just a rules-based system. We're not just a team who develops very prescriptive. We want to get to that learning cycle.
Do you harvest ideas from the employees? Have they started sort of coming with ideas?
So as far as getting ideas from the employees, we're not quite there. I mean, we've implemented it, I'd say we're kind of in the fairly mid to early stages of in the intelligent or automation hub of implementing that. We have not opened it up for all of Geisinger to start submitting ideas. So to me, that's more of you know, taking the employee request for ideas. But I would say if an employee came up to us and said, I have an automation idea, we certainly would not turn them away. I mean, that's the good thing about Geisinger, and I'll just say the great thing about Geisinger is the culture of innovation. And you know, anybody you know, can shoot us an email or go to a member, one of our process architects, and say, you know, I have an idea for an automation or what have you. But as far as doing that crowdsourcing to go out and have people know about the automation hub, we're not there yet in our plan to be able to do that. So that is our goal, to be able to use it that way.
At the management level, how do you solicit buy-in from, you know, line of business leaders? Are there incentives for them to embrace automation, or are there just natural incentives for them to improve their bottom line? How do you align the leadership of the company to kind of go along with it?
I would just say, back to that executive summary, we look at the data from a qualitative and a quantitative perspective, and really the incentive from the leaders are, it is intrinsic from the data that comes out of the ability to automate and the avoidance for cost or needing to add an FTE, the ability to increase their employee satisfaction because they know, you know, I'm just throwing out, Sarah really does not like doing this report every day and would rather focus on X, Y, and Z. And this is a process that is quite manual. And she knows by taking out that process from Sarah's day, she can really focus on higher level functioning jobs or specific duties. So I think that's important to garner the buy-in from the manager on why this can help them. And once they really understand why it can help them, to Jen's point about the film file review, the light bulb just clicks, and then they want to increase the scope.
So if you were giving somebody tips on how to get started on their automation journey, what are the first 3 steps that you would recommend?
So I think it goes back to, you know, what I said earlier is first educating yourself and then forming an education outreach plan for others. So, you know, I think creating a strategic plan for your department so you can kind of keep yourself in check, because you can get a little, you know, it's exciting. It's an exciting field, and you can get a little, I don't want to say lost, but you can get a little like, wow, like this person wants to do this and this person, it helps keep you grounded. So I just feel like having a strategic plan for your own department to follow and keep yourself on your right path for your department is good, and to have some goals. So I think that's very important. I will say forming a relationship with the business is very crucial, because automation is also can be very scary to people. And when you come in and start talking about automating roles and positions and duties, it can either scare people, or they can jump right on and be right next to you. I think forming a business relationship, because it's not just saying, oh yes, we want to do automation, it's getting access to systems, it's getting that PDD nailed down, it's all the other things that are way harder, in my opinion, than just saying, yes, we want to automate, because you'll never be successful at implementing the automation if you don't have a relationship where you can just ping somebody and say, hey, I need you to help with this, or hey, I need you to help with that. So the relationship, I think, to me, is really key. And you just have to remember that you're providing a service to the business. I mean, our job here is to provide a service to Geisinger and to keep up with our skill sets, to be able to say, we're not stopping with just RPA. Like Emily said, we want to start adding the AI fabric. We want OCR. We want all the other things, the chatbot. Like we have a journey that we want to do with UiPath and automation in the IAH. And it's our role to also, in providing that service to Geisinger, to make sure that we know what we're doing. And I just look at it as we're like a service provider for the organization.
I'll say my three tips would be, I think first and foremost, Jen's right on the money with the strategic plan. As I mentioned in the beginning, healthcare is in the hype cycle of automation, and we're learning what processes are the best suited for automation within healthcare. Building that strategic plan and automation partner like UiPath, and understanding where your first focus areas are, and developing the relationships with the business. The second piece I would say is stacking. As you're starting off on your journey, build that pipeline before you jump right into development, and have those proof of concepts to start. So have process architects start first to start building that automation potential and what can be developed, and then stack hands with leadership for a proof of concept and bring in the developers at that point. Because I think if you bring everybody in at once, you're going to have people sitting idle. It's just, that's what will happen, and you won't have enough pipeline. Once you have that pipeline, those developers are busy for years and years to come, because we have so much opportunity for automation. So I think the second piece is staggering your employment and how you bring people on. And the third, and I think this probably should come before item number 2, is really building out your technical architecture to meet your system needs and that long-term strategic plan. So formulate your strategic plan, figure out the technical architecture that will help you achieve your goals, to get to OCR, to get to chatbot development, to get to weaving in the AI fabric, and building a timeline around that, and then figuring out your staggering of employees for building up your department. I think those are the 3 first key things you have to do. And I'll just add one tagline, because it is very specific to healthcare, is knowing the regulations and how they impact what you're doing, and how you're stacking your team onshore versus offshore, what regulations impact that for development, and understanding HIPAA and how it impacts what you're doing.
So do you think automation increases business resiliency, and how?
Yes, I think that automation absolutely builds the business resiliency. When you have FTEs, humans who are out sick, when you have pandemics like COVID, which I hope we never come against again, but the automations don't stop.
So we hear from many of our customers that automation can be a competitive advantage. Do you agree that automation can be a competitive advantage, and how so?
I think automation can definitely be a competitive advantage, because the more automations that you do, the more there is reusable components of the automation that can be done for additional automations. So the more you do, the better you become, and the more cost savings you will gain within your own automation COE.
I think that automation is absolutely a competitive advantage. When you think about how you have to be agile and rapidly deploy something, if automation can achieve that, it allows us to focus our efforts and build things quickly to respond to the environment that we're in. We reassigned almost 3,000 FTEs in a matter of a month and a half. And that was done by using automation in the background to help us source demands and available FTEs for that assignment. So that's just an example of being able to quickly deploy people to be able to serve our communities and our patients, and therefore a competitive advantage. Yeah. They can come to Geisinger because we have the resources available to provide to them. And in the background, what you don't see is automation enabling us to do that. So sometimes there's automations that are very transparent to the patients and members, and then sometimes they don't understand the impacts and effects that they're having in the background to make things as streamlined as they are.
This was a really terrific interview, and it's really, you have a wonderful story, and I market UiPath, and to be able to hear from customers who are on the front lines actually using the bots and finding that they're doing things for you that we don't imagine every use case. So it's really great to hear how it's helping you and your employees and your customers and your patients. So I think we could call it a wrap, and thank you so much for being with us today.